Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. Big news out of Ottawa this evening, where opposition members of Parliament have voted in favor of a national public inquiry into allegations of foreign election interference. They have been sitting through hours of testimony over the past 2 days as part of the Procedure and House Affairs Committee proceedings. And today, by a vote of 6-5, with Liberal MPs voting against opposition parties, they voted in favor of calling on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to enact an inquiry that would include, but not be limited to, allegations of election meddling. So the committee still needs to report to the House with regard to this decision, and it's non-binding. So even though they voted for it, it doesn't mean the government's actually going to do it, because it's still within the government's purview whether to take the committee's advice or not. The opposition members of Parliament want the inquiry to have the power to compel relevant national security documents, and they want to call key government and political party figures to testify. So that could include ministers, campaign directors for political parties during the 2021 and the 2019 elections. The Conservatives, during the process, amended the motion. They wanted to include language asking for the inquiry to investigate the abuse of diaspora groups by hostile foreign governments. The official opposition also announced that they wanted wording that seeks to ensure that that the person heading the inquiry be unanimously selected by all recognized parties in the House of Commons, and that the inquiry does not impede the Standing Committee's work from continuing. So the PROC has a mandate to review and report on the election of members to the House of Commons. The MPs on the committee have spent the last 2 days studying the issue of foreign election interference through public meetings. Well, actually, past 2 days, they've been hearing from experts, but the meetings and their investigation into it really goes all the way back to last November. So one of the, I guess, most prominent figures through the last 2 days of hearings has been Michael Cooper, a Conservative member of Parliament. And I'm going to bring you a little bit of what he had to say here right now. Let me just get this up on the screen for you. This is Michael Cooper, a member of Parliament. He's Conservative. Here we go.
Do you want to speak again? Let's see if the camera comes to you.
Okay, now it's on me. Okay. Madam Chair, as I was saying, there's no question that there are other foreign state bad actors, including Russia, which Mr. Julian has cited, and we need to take those threats seriously. But at the same time, the biggest threat posed to Canada by any state is that of the Beijing communist regime, and that has been made clear by our security and intelligence agencies. It's what we heard this morning from CSIS. Moreover, there have been alarming reports of a sophisticated and vast campaign of interference in our elections in 2019 and 2021, based upon a review of CSIS documents by reputable journalists. And although that interference in no way impacted the overall result of either the 2019 or 2021 elections, they did have or may have had an impact in certain ridings. If even one riding is impacted, that is something that should be of grave concern for all Canadians who care about protecting our democracy and our democratic institutions. It should be Canadians and Canadians alone who decide elections, overall election outcomes in ridings, not hostile foreign state actors. And so in the face of that, what I believe is appropriate to get to the bottom of this interference by way of an inquiry is an inquiry that is targeted and focused, that can produce a report in the near future. I would hope before the next election, which could happen at any time. What would not be desirable is to have a inquiry that was expansive, that did not provide a report perhaps for a year or 2 years down the road. We need answers, and we need answers now. And that is why a targeted, narrow inquiry makes sense and deals with these very specific allegations and revelations that have been brought forward. The other aspect of this amendment is to ensure that Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister, doesn't get to decide unilaterally who is the commissioner. We already...
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'm so sorry, but I'm hearing a lot of feedback. I'm not sure if there's another mic that's on in the room.
So you mean when Mr. Cooper is speaking, you're hearing feedback?
Yes, I am.
So do you hear feedback when I speak?
No, I'm not hearing it right now. So maybe if Mr. Cooper can try again. I don't know. I think there was some kind of technical glitch. I'm not sure if it's on my end or on in the room.
Well, we would want to make sure that every member is heard. So I'm going to return the floor to Mr. Cooper. And should it happen again, do exactly what you've just done. Mr. Cooper.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And as I was saying, and I hope that I'm coming through more clearly now, that we don't think it's appropriate that Mr. Trudeau, the Prime Minister, should be able to unilaterally decide who heads this inquiry. After all, the Prime Minister is implicated to the degree that his office was reportedly...
Serious apologies to Mr. Cooper and to Madam Chair. I'm not sure if it's on my end, but I'm just hearing a lot of feedback. I don't know what it is.
Thank you. Can I just ask other colleagues who are on screen, are you hearing feedback as well? Romanato, do you hear feedback when he speaks?
I'm getting a bit of scratchy. But I'm going to unplug my thing and plug it back in and see if it's me.
Or Mr. Broussard, are you hearing feedback when Mr. Cooper speaks?
I'm not hearing feedback. I'm hearing feedback when Ms. Khalid is speaking.
So they're going to give her a call.
Mr. Turnbull, do you hear any feedback?
I haven't heard any feedback other than when a mic is on in the room and someone else online is trying to speak.
Okay, so the technicians are going to call Ms. Khalid and maybe touching base with Mrs. Romanato, who's hearing scratching as well. It's feeling better. It's not scratchy. Great. Mr. Cooper, back to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We don't believe that it's appropriate that Mr. Trudeau, the Prime Minister, should decide unilaterally who heads this inquiry. The Prime Minister has a conflict. He has a conflict to the degree that there are serious allegations that have been made that from a global news report of last week, that the Prime Minister's senior aides, several of the senior aides, were briefed by CSIS in 2019 that a Liberal candidate and now sitting MP had the assistant of Beijing's Toronto consulate in his nomination campaign, and that they turned a blind eye. They did nothing about that in the face of those warnings from CSIS. We have also seen no answer from the Prime Minister on the veracity of those reports. He has refused to answer basic questions, including whether he had been briefed. Needless to say, the Prime Minister's office is involved in matters that go to the heart of what this inquiry is about, and what the heart of the matter is about what the Prime Minister knew when he knew it, and what he did or did not do about Beijing's interference in our elections. And this, in order for there to be confidence in such an inquiry, it needs to be not only an impartial and fair process, it needs to be seen as such. And this amendment to Mr. Julian's motion would do just that. It would provide an opportunity for all of the House leaders of all of the recognized parties to reach agreement unanimously as to the individual who should head the inquiry. And while this inquiry is important, it is also important to recognize that much of the work of the commissioner and the panel members may be in a venue that is not open, that is not before the public, having regard for classified documents and other information that that might be subject of review of the inquiry. And given the very serious allegations that have been made, given the almost daily reports of some new aspect, some new issue, some new scandal involving election interference by Beijing in the 2019 and 2021 elections, it's not simply enough to say, well, let the inquiry do its work behind closed doors, and then at the end of it issue a heavily redacted report. Again, we welcome an inquiry, but we don't welcome it as a substitute, as a replacement for the work that this committee is doing to undertake a study of election foreign interference, and the work that we have been tasked to undertake specifically with respect to interference in the 2019 and 2021 elections by Beijing. The advice of CSIS in respect of the manner in which foreign interference be responded to is based upon sunlight and transparency, that the public should be made known of interference. And this committee provides a forum for there to be sunshine and transparency now, to get answers now. We might not be able to get all the answers. That's why I support the objective of Mr. Julian's motion, which is to establish an inquiry. But it would not be, I believe, in the interests of getting to the truth and getting to the bottom of this to simply shut the work of this committee down. We need to continue to do our work. We need to continue to hear from witnesses, and we need to continue to insist on the production of documents. And there are a lot of witnesses that we need to hear from, including Katie Telford, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, who is someone who, as the Prime Minister said, when you're talking to Katie Telford, it's like talking to me. She is someone who is a key witness to getting to the bottom of the central issue at hand, which is what the Prime Minister knew, when he knew it, what he did about it or didn't do about it in respect to Beijing's interference in our election. So given that, this would strike, I think, the right balance with the openness and transparency of this committee to be able to move forward, today, next week, and in the weeks to come, as we learn more about this very serious interference, which the Prime Minister up until now has been anything but transparent about, as he seeks to deflect and block and cover up his inaction based on everything that has been made available up until now. So I will probably have other comments to make, but I will leave it at that for now. And I would I'm hopeful that this this amendment will be well received and will be adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper.
And again, they did vote in favor of an inquiry into foreign election meddling in Canadian elections, but it's not binding. So there still needs to be a process. The government can decide to do it or not, accept the recommendations and move forward or not. My guess is they won't, because it's pretty clear that we are in a situation where we could go to the polls, and we could have an election on our hands as early as this spring. That is the word out there. Preparations are underway. All the major political parties are preparing for an election. That is the case. I've seen the memos myself. So I don't think Justin Trudeau would want this kind of inquiry right before an election. It's just it's just more negative energy pumped into the system as you're about to go to the polls. Whether he's responsible, isn't responsible for it, whether he benefited or didn't benefit, the smell of possible foreign meddling in the election would just irritate voters. It would definitely hurt the Liberals when people go to the polls. So he will not want this. So I wouldn't hold my breath. Could happen. It could. Politics is a strange game to play. I've said before many times, it's a blood sport. But in this case, I think he'll try to avoid it. Stay with me. More ahead right after this. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some weapons seized by RCMP. Don't go away.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Okay. RCMP. They have seized a bunch of weapons and ammunition from a home west of Montreal. As a result, 2 brothers are facing firearms charges. RCMP calling this seizure a very significant occurrence. It involves a stash of guns and ammunitions, which they say were found in a home west of Montreal. They also allegedly found neo-Nazi material inside the residence. So the RCMP's Integrated National Security Enforcement Team, or INSET, raided this home. It's in the off-island suburb of Vaudreuil, Dorion, last November, but after receiving a tip from, this happened after receiving a tip from the Canada Border Services Agency. The CBSA had information that the accused were buying weapons from legitimate and illegal sources online in order to resell them on the black market. At least that's what the RCMP alleged. So Jordan Madden, 29 years old, and his brother, 31-year-old Joshua Madden, are facing 7 charges related to possession, storage, trafficking, and transfer of firearms. I have images supplied by the RCMP. So that's what it looked like outside the residence where the raid took place. Images of the ammunition, which was allegedly confiscated as part of this raid. There you have the guns. Also allegedly in that residence and seized by police. So I guess there was a collaboration between Canada Post and RCMP, which established a pattern or identified a pattern of suspicious activity concerning packages that were addressed to the brothers. And it took officers 3 days to execute the search warrant. So as I say, this search occurred November 30th. And we're just getting the information now. So all of the charges are weapons related, even though they found neo-Nazi material inside the residence, allegedly. Police have not laid any charges in connection with that. Police said that because of the presence of the 2 elements, the weapons and the neo-Nazi material, they felt that there was an ideology that could potentially lead to violence. So that is what prompted the National Security Team to take action. So you're looking here at a total of 37 firearms, weapons parts, military accessories, according to police, and more than 10,000 rounds of ammunition. They also found approximately 200 high-capacity magazines. The two accused men are due to report to court and make an appearance on Friday. East of, just outside Montreal, west of Montreal. That's where that happened. So, more to come right after this. Don't go away.
Fear not the storm, for truth is on our side. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, I'm back. On the international stage, Russia's top diplomat says he's shocked at the impunity over Nordstream sabotage. Sergei Lavrov made the statement at the G20 summit. Lavrov insists on having a fair and swift investigation into what he calls a terror attack regarding the Nord Stream issue with the involvement of Russia and others. He said during his statement that, quote, "We are witnessing the degradation of international economic relations provoked by the West, the transformation into a weapon, including in the energy sector. We insist on a fair and swift investigation into the terror attack with involvement of Russia and others concerned." Lavrov, of course, is talking about the explosion of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline underwater. And, of course, we all know about Seymour Hersh and his article, which claims the September incident was the result of a bombing of the undersea Nord Stream gas pipelines. And he says that they were carried out by the United States in a covert operation. His article was published in Substack. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, well-respected, citing unnamed sources in his article. He noted that the decision to damage the pipelines occurred after more than 9 months of top-secret debates inside the Washington intelligence community. The White House has dismissed the allegations as, in their words, utterly false and complete fiction. While addressing the presser in New Delhi, Lavrov said that the West refused to include Russia's proposal on the need for an investigation of Nord Stream blasts in the G20 final declaration. And, quote, "They also refused to accept another fact in this context which reflects the events that have taken place since then." He continues, "I am referring to the terrorist act against the Nord Stream gas pipelines. Our proposal to include in the document the need for an impartial and honest investigation was categorically rejected by our Western partners." So we have a clip of Lavrov ready to roll here. And then we're going to tell you how the Western media is portraying this story. It's quite different than what we're getting from other news agencies and independents. Here's Lavrov.
Fortunately, the declaration on the behalf of all the ministers of the G20 groups was not approved by everyone. All the ministers, our Western counterparts, like a year ago when Indonesia was presiding with every way possible, with every mean possible, by posing, making a lot of rhetorical statements. They wanted to put at the forefront the problem, the situation around Ukraine, which they present under the guise of the so-called Russian aggression. It did not yield anything good. The discussion, at least in regards of the Western countries, speeches, the G7 countries, they were getting very emotional in their statements, and it all was damaging the normal process of discussing the issues that are really important for the G20 agenda.
So, Antony Blinken from the State Department met with Lavrov, but only briefly, at the G20. And it's his statements that are really dominating headlines in the West, where they're focusing on Blinken telling Lavrov that Russia needs to end its war of aggression. So we have Blinken queued up here, ready to roll. Let's bring him up and you can hear what he had to say today. Here we go.
Lastly, I spoke briefly with Russia's Foreign Minister Lavrov on the margins of our G20 meeting today. I urged Russia to reverse its irresponsible decision and return to implementing the New START Treaty, which places verifiable limits on the nuclear arsenals of the United States and the Russian Federation. Mutual compliance is in the interest of both our countries.
So that was his statement during a news conference. You can clearly see there's a real divide there. And NATO still holding together. And it seems quite clear that the Nordstream pipeline incident, it's the most probable cause was a U.S. act of aggression. Terror, an act of terrorism if you're in the pro-Russia camp, I guess. An act of war or aggression. However you want to characterize it, if it's true, and Mr. Hirsch is a very credible source of information who has a reputation for having credible sources. So I am inclined personally to believe it. It seems like the most likely scenario. And that has got to be putting strain on NATO relations. When Scott Ritter was on the program last, he also indicated that that is perhaps the most significant story of the entire war, because it threatens to rip NATO apart. What you have is one NATO country attacking another NATO country to make them more dependent on energy from the United States or other Western countries or NATO allies, instead of having access to more affordable Russian energy. Like I said, politics is a blood sport. You layer politics on top of a war, you have yourself a pretty volatile situation. And who knows what really happened? I can't say with 100% certainty that the U.S. blew up that pipeline, because I can't put on a diving suit, go down and take a look. Will we ever know the truth? I don't know anymore. Like they say, the first casualty of war is truth. I don't know if we're ever being told the truth anymore. It's out there somewhere. We'll keep looking for it. Don't go away.
Hello, world. Are you awake? uniting humankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
And we're going to go to the White House for an address, a daily press briefing with Admiral John Kirby. Hang on just a moment. Here we go. Hang on. Here we go.
Chancellor Schultz visit tomorrow and take any foreign policy questions you all may have. And after that,
German
we'll
Chancellor
continue the
Schultz
briefing.
is heading
Thanks.
to Washington tomorrow.
Afternoon, everybody. Tomorrow, as you know, President Biden's going to welcome German Chancellor Olaf Scholz here to the White House to discuss our bilateral cooperation on a range of global security and economic issues. The President looks forward, of course, to welcoming him back here to the White House, where they last met in February of 2022, soon after the Chancellor took office. And over the last year, they've seen each other on the margins of the G7 summit in Germany, at NATO, at the G20 summit, and of course, they've talked on the phone regularly. They most recently spoke last week as part of the G7 leaders' call on the anniversary of Russia's invasion. The visit comes as we mark 1 year since that invasion started, and we're proud of the collective efforts that we've taken together to provide Ukraine with the capabilities they need. And we've worked hand in hand with Germany and the Quad, the G7, allies and partners all over the world, including through the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, to do exactly that. We've closely coordinated our support to Ukraine throughout this conflict, including through joint announcements in January to provide infantry fighting vehicles and tanks. Germany has provided significant air defense support to Ukraine, including a Patriot battery, the Iris-T air defense system, which is an infrared seeking system, and 5 multiple launch rocket systems. As you all know, Germany is also a close NATO ally and host to our largest U.S. military force presence in Europe, which has been pivotal this year as we have again tried to reinforce our NATO allies and bolstered the eastern flank of NATO and the deterrence there. A large portion of U.S. training of Ukrainian forces occurs at our bases in Germany, and our German colleagues have also conducted their own training of Ukrainians also in Germany. And just last week, we worked together to rally global support at the UN for Ukraine's resolution on a just peace. And we've also been supportive of the Chancellor's efforts to implement policy changes to respond to the changed security environment, including increasing Germany's defense spending and rapidly transitioning from Russian energy sources. I'm sure the leaders will discuss their recent engagements with Ukrainian officials, including the president's trip to Kyiv and meeting with President Zelensky, as well as Chancellor Scholz's meeting with President Zelensky in Paris last month. We anticipate that the two leaders will also exchange views on the upcoming NATO summit and other global issues like the challenges posed by the People's Republic of China. All in all, we expect that this will be a true working visit between these two leaders, and we're looking very much forward to getting some things done. We also announced early this afternoon that President Biden looks forward to welcoming next week President Ursula von der Leyen of the European Commission here to the White House on Friday, the 10th of March, another working visit. We expect their discussion to cover a range of international security challenges, of course, including support for Ukraine. They will also discuss U.S. and EU coordination to combat the climate crisis and clean tech, and take stock of the Joint Task Force on Europe's energy security that they both established a year ago. Just one quick follow-up here. I think you also saw that today the president released the administration's national cybersecurity strategy. Now, this administration has taken an aggressive approach to strengthening our nation's cybersecurity since day one. And this strategy builds on the president's work over the last 2 years in that regard. The strategy released today will set forth a new vision for the future of cyberspace and the wider digital ecosystem. It will rebalance the responsibility for managing cyber risk onto those who are most able to bear it, including large enterprises and the federal government, and away from those who can and should not have to bear it, including local governments, tribal territories, small businesses, even individual citizens. The National Security Strategy, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, CHIPS and Science Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, and other major administration initiatives are moving the nation toward a more equitable economy, a clean energy transition, a stronger democracy, and a more competitive workforce. With the National Cybersecurity Strategy, we will protect all of these investments by increasing our collective security and systemic resilience. That strategy and the fact sheet are now available on whitehouse.gov. Hope you guys go take a look at it.
John, with the Ukraine preparing for this offensive, are the two leaders going to discuss accelerating military assistance to Ukraine?
I think without question, Steve, they're going to talk about the kinds of capabilities that Ukraine continues to need in the weeks and months ahead. You'll see us tomorrow, just unilaterally, the U.S. will have another round of assistance for Ukraine coming tomorrow. And it will include mostly ammunitions and munitions that the Ukrainians will need for the systems that they already have, like the HIMARS and the artillery. So I can't predict a specific outcome tomorrow. I wouldn't look for that, but certainly they will be discussing additional support for Ukraine going forward. We know that.
A number for tomorrow's announcement?
We'll just stay tuned and we'll have more detail on that later. Yeah.
Thanks. Just to follow on Steve a little bit, do you expect a discussion of or announcement of Germans moving tank shells or ammunition production to the United States? That's been kind of an issue that's floating out there because it's more difficult, I think, to produce in Europe because of regulatory and other issues. And so it might come here.
We'll have a full readout of the meeting after it's over. Again, clearly they're going to talk about Ukraine and how we can all work together to help support them as quickly as we possibly can with as much as we can. But I don't have anything specific on that proposal.
Thank you. Thanks, Gordon. Hi, John. Iran is reported to be enriching uranium up to 84% of working grade level. What is your response to that? If there's any consequences for them, and how does it complicate any chances of going back to the JCPOA? And I have another question.
I'm not in a position to confirm those reports. Clearly, one of the reasons why, when this administration took office, we wanted to get back in the Iran deal was because without the Iran deal in place, Iran was free to continue enrichment and free to further decrease the breakout time to weeks and months from what had been more than a couple of years. That's why we wanted to get back in the Iran deal. The Iran deal right now is still not a focus of the agenda. As Iran continues to supply military equipment and capabilities to Russia so that they can continue to kill Ukrainians, as they continue to crack down on protesters in their own country, and as they continue to support terrorists throughout the Middle East and Levant. So it's just not a focus for the administration right now.
After the Israeli settlers attacked the village of Hawara in the West Bank next to Nablus, the Israeli finance minister has called for the wipe out of this village. Is this a language that's acceptable from one of your closest allies?
No, it's not. And we've already talked about that. We've spoken to that. That's not acceptable language. And we continue, as always, to urge both sides to take no steps, and certainly not to participate in rhetoric that are only going to escalate the tensions.
On the Blinken-Lavrov meeting, this was obviously the first time that they've spoken face-to-face since Russia invaded. Why did the U.S. feel now was the right time to have this conversation? And also, the Russians say that it was at Blinken's request. Is that correct?
It was a pull-aside. They were in the same room at the G20 in New Delhi. And Secretary Blinken took the opportunity available to him to make three key points. One, we don't want Russia to suspend their participation in New START because that treaty makes both our countries safer. Two, we want Paul Whelan back. We got a proposal on the table. They ought to take it. And three, we're going to continue to support Ukraine.
China, though, was not on that list. Is there a reason why it didn't?
It was a 10-minute pull-aside. It wasn't a pre-scheduled long bilat kind of a meeting. I mean, it was an opportunity that Secretary Blinken took advantage of.
To follow up on a couple other topics on that in that neighborhood, any evidence that China has made any further decisions or actions either way, whether to provide lethal aid to Russia?
We've seen no indication that they've made that decision. They haven't taken it off the table, Peter, but we haven't seen any indication.
As it was then. Let me ask that if I can. The president said to us a couple of weeks ago when he was speaking about the aerial objects there that he expected to speak soon, was his language, with President Xi. Is there any update on that? Any formal outreach? When would that take place?
No formal outreach that I'm aware of, Peter, and no call on the schedule.
Okay, then just one last one to punctuate. Several months ago, the president promised Saudi Arabia would suffer, quote, consequences. That was his language after the Saudi-led OPEC unexpectedly announced it would cut production. Is it fair to say now, this many months later, that that's not going to happen?
I addressed this the other day when I was at the podium here with Karine a few days ago. We talked about this. There's, first of all, there already had been consequences because, as you know, Congress took action to limit arms sales to Saudi Arabia. But we noted on Monday, whenever it was that I talked to you about last, that they had visited Kyiv. They agreed to contribute $400 million of energy infrastructure support to Kyiv, to Ukraine. We found that a welcome development. We're focused on the future now.
Yeah, Patsy. Thanks, Corinne. John, I have a question on the cybersecurity strategy, but first on Taiwan, the administration has approved a $619 million potential arms sales to Taiwan that includes hundreds of missiles, including for F-16s. Can you clarify the administration's goals to provide these weapons? And can you address concerns whether you'll be able to fulfill this package, considering the U.S. defense industry is already struggling to fulfill munitions requests for Ukraine?
I don't know that there's anything to clarify. I mean, this most recent announcement on arms sales is very much in keeping with our responsibilities under the Taiwan Relations Act to make sure that Taiwan has sufficient self-defense capability. These munitions designed for F-16 aircraft will exactly help do that. And as for the impact of it on what we're providing to Ukraine, there won't be. They're completely two different systems. The way this is, I mean, arms sales is a whole different process and methodology than what we're doing for Ukraine, which is largely through presidential drawdown authority, where you're basically taking stuff that are already on your shelves and providing it to Ukraine directly. So it's a completely different process, different system altogether.
So is it the same? Is it the same kind of munitions, but just provided by different factories? I'm sorry, I don't understand.
The types of, I don't want to get into too much detail here from the podium, but the types of munitions are the kinds of munitions that will allow Taiwan to continue to modernize their fleet of F-16s. So it's largely designed for F-16 delivery.
Okay. On cybersecurity, would the new cybersecurity strategy allow the administration to authorize U.S. agencies to implement hackback operations to networks of criminals or foreign governments to preempt attacks on U.S. networks?
I don't think we're going to get into the tactics here from the podium on something like cybersecurity. I mean, I'd encourage you to take a look at the strategy. It's pretty fulsome. It covers a wide range of issues, largely bringing back onto the federal government some responsibility that we think is more appropriately us and that shouldn't be laid at the feet of small businesses and individuals, as well as the tribal territories, and also gives us more tools and more flexibilities with going after bad actors. And I think I really do need to leave it at that.
Thanks, John. Following up on the Lincoln-Lavrov meeting, is there any discussion or consideration of what it would take for a conversation between the president and President Putin? Is that off the table?
The president already spoke to this several months ago, I think, when President Zelensky was here. He said if Mr. Putin were to be sincere and dedicated to actually sitting down and talking about peace, the president would consider talking to him, but there's been no change to that.
Back on Ukraine, the Russian government in the last 24, 48 hours has been publishing reports about alleged Ukrainian saboteurs in its territory and fighting with them. Is there any U.S. government assessment of that, the veracity of those claims?
Seen the reports, can't confirm it.
Yeah, thank you so much. One other question on the visit of Chancellor Scholz. According to my excellent colleagues from Reuters, the administration is, consulting with allies regarding further sanctions against China if China decides to deliver weapons to Russia. And Germany comes to mind, given their very close, business relationship with China. So, do you expect that to be a topic and maybe a difficult topic in the conversation tomorrow?
I certainly would expect, in the context of talking about what's going on in Ukraine, that that the issue of third-party support to Russia could come up. They have reached out, as you know, to Iran. They've reached out to North Korea. But I don't want to get ahead of where we are here. We haven't seen the Chinese make this decision. We don't think they've taken it off the table, but we haven't seen them make a decision to go forward. We've communicated privately, certainly publicly, our concerns about that. We believe it's not in China's best interest to move forward in that regard, and they should see it the same way. I just don't think it's helpful right now to hypothesize about what consequences might result. Secretary Blinken has talked about the fact that there would be ramifications, and I think that's probably better if we just leave it at that.
Raquel in the back.
Thank you so much, Karim. Hi, John. So President Zelensky just spoke with Lula now, and he just tweeted that they discussed diplomatic efforts to bring peace to Ukraine, and he invited Lula to come and visit Ukraine. Do you believe that any efforts to mediate peace at this time could be successful?
Only if President Zelensky and his government are fully brought into the process and fully supportive of it. Nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine.
Thank you. I have a question about refugee policy as well. The president praised Poland for assisting refugees during his trip. When it comes to the United States, we often hear about the United for Ukraine program. There was also between April 11th and April 21st, about 10,000 Ukrainians who came in across the border were not covered by TPS or United for Ukraine, but parole that's set to expire next month. Is the administration considering any option to extend that legal status? And if it's not extended, what would happen to those 10,000 Ukrainians in the United States?
Let me take the question. I'll take that question. We'll get back to you.
Is there any chance that we could get you in the White House to reconsider not having a 2+2 press conference with Schultz? We would love for there to be the regular 2+2 press conference. Similarly, are you planning to hold one of these press conferences when President von der Leyen visits?
So I think Karine addressed this issue yesterday. And I don't have anything to add to what she told you. This is a working visit, and it's the agenda, which is tight knit because it's just not an expansive. He's not going to be meeting with the president all day. It's a tight visit, working level visit on pretty significant issues, and it just wasn't part of the schedule for either leader here to do a press conference. And it's not, as I understand it, I've not been here for long, but we don't always do that. I mean, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. It depends a lot on the agenda and the schedules by both leaders.
Thank you very much. Hungary has further delayed a vote on ratifying Sweden's and Finland's accession to NATO.
Yeah.
This time by 2 weeks. Are you concerned about this delay? Are you confident that Hungary at the end will accept expansion of NATO? And since Turkey says it's not ready to approve Sweden's membership in NATO, would President Biden support Finland's admission first before Sweden's? And one question on yesterday's meeting between...
Hang on before you go to that, because I'm going to forget. So first of all, what we are confident in is that Finland and Sweden are going to be great NATO allies. Two modern militaries, we know them well, we operate and train with them all the time. They're going to be welcome additions to the alliance. The president remains confident that they're going to be NATO allies. Now, we're also encouraged by the fact that there are still discussions going on between Turkey, Finland, and Sweden, as well as with Hungary. We'll let those nations speak to the specifics of their concerns and the process, but the president's confident that these two countries deserve to be in NATO and will be in NATO. And as for your second question on the choreography, what matters to us is that both nations become NATO allies. The Texas two-step that goes into doing that, that's not our main concern.
The second question, I'm not sure if it's to you or to Karine. The First Lady, Jill Biden, met with Poland's First Lady, Agata Kornhauser-Duda, yesterday at the White House. Could you give some details about the meeting? How did it happen?
No, it was a terrific opportunity for the First Lady to meet with the First Lady of Poland and to be able to thank her personally for all the support that Poland has given to our men and women in uniform who are operating out of Poland right now, as well as the just incredible humanitarian work that Poland has done for Ukrainian citizens. I think we've talked about this, but essentially, they have all the rights of Polish citizens. Their kids can go to school, they can get jobs, they can qualify for healthcare, and they're living in homes, Polish homes. Families are taking them in. We're talking about more than 1.5 million refugees. That's the kind of generosity that the Polish people are demonstrating, and it was really important for the First Lady to be able to thank the First Lady of Poland directly on that.
Thanks, John. So, a bill requiring the DNI to declassify the COVID origins intel passed the Senate. If it passes the House too, would President Biden sign it?
I won't get ahead of the president's decision making, Peter, but look, a couple of things to keep in mind. Right after taking office, the president declassified and made public the DNI's initial findings here about the source of COVID. So he already very swiftly and unilaterally put information out there. That's one. Two, the intelligence community continues to assess the origins of COVID. I know I've seen press reporting about some preliminary findings of a classified nature, but there's still no consensus. And that's why the president has directed the team to stay at the work, because he wants to know. He wants to know as best we can know what the origins were so that we can work to better prevent a future pandemic.
But we've got the FBI director saying most likely a potential lab incident in Wuhan. If a foreign country came to the United States and killed 1.1 million Americans with guns, would the president just let that slide?
Nobody's letting anything slide. That's why the president wants the intelligence community to work so hard to get to, hopefully, to get some answers that that we can rely on. Right now, there's just no consensus. It's hard to take a look at what the president has done here in terms of declassifying and making public information already, in terms of the constant and consistent briefings to members of Congress in a classified and unclassified setting in just recent weeks on what the origins of COVID were, and on his tasking again to the intelligence community to keep at that work and come away from that thinking that he's not taking this seriously.
Three more, okay.
As many as 900 schoolgirls appear to have been poisoned in Iran. Does the U.S. have any information about what could be behind those poisonings? And if it was the government, is that something that could prompt American sanctions?
It's deeply concerning news coming out of Iran. What could be the poisoning of young girls that are just going to school. And truth is, we don't know right now what caused those ailments. We see reports that the Iranian government are investigating it. That's the right course of action. We want those investigations to be thorough and complete, and we want them to be transparent. Little girls going to school should only have to worry about learning. They shouldn't have to worry about their own physical safety, but we just don't know enough right now.
Would the U.S. take that investigation at face value, or would you try and conduct
Let's
your own?
see what the results are here first before we make some kind of snap judgment. We don't really know what's going on with respect to these hundreds of schoolgirls, I think where the president is, we need to know. The world needs to know. Certainly, the families of those little girls need to know. So let's see where it goes before we make some snap judgments. But obviously, very deeply concerning reports.
Paul Whelan, was there any progress made in the conversation between Lavrov and Secretary Blinken that they signaled any willingness to release him?
It was a short conversation where the secretary had an opportunity to remind Minister Lavrov, we want Mr. Whelan back. He belongs with his family, and that there is a proposal on the table. We want the Russians to take it. I really, for reasons I'm sure you can understand, I don't want to get into what the back and forth was on that, or detail the conversations that we're still trying to have with the Russians about getting Mr. Whelan back.
Just briefly on Ukraine aid, should we expect anything on that in the budget next week, or will that just be top lines on defense?
I'm not going to get ahead of the president's budget announcement.
China and Belarus conducted high-level talks yesterday and expanded their defense partnership. Is the White House concerned that China may channel weapons to Russia via Belarus?
Again, we have not seen the Chinese make a decision with respect to providing lethal weaponry. We don't believe they've taken it off the table, but we don't believe they've made a decision to do that. I really don't think it's helpful to get ahead of where we are here in this process. We've communicated that the Chinese are concerns about this. It's really not in their best interest, and they should believe the same thing. So let's just not get ahead of where we are.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, John. I have two questions. What is the President Biden's reactions about North Korea's recently Hwasong 15 ICBM launching and large rocket launchers? Do you have any comment on that?
We have reacted in real time to each and every one, Janie. I think you know that. And in response to the most recent ones, we conducted some exercises with our OK allies. We're continuing to stay vigilant on and around the peninsula. And of course, we've publicly condemned these launches, as had our UN colleagues.
Ukraine requested arms aid from South Korea. Does the United States want South Korea to provide weapons other than ammunition to Ukraine?
We want all nations to support Ukraine to the best that they can. We don't want any nation to help Russia kill more Ukrainians. But it's a sovereign decision. Each nation has to. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm waiting. I'm like.
No. Now you forgot my train of thought. These are sovereign decisions, and we want every nation to act in accordance with what they believe they can handle from their own national security perspective. The South Koreans have already been very helpful. They've been attending these Ukraine conduct defense groups, and we appreciate that, and we're very grateful for that. I haven't got much rhythm today.
John, given what you were saying earlier, that the administration doesn't think China's taken off the table sending weapons to Russia, but you haven't seen any movement towards doing that, how serious then do you think China is about sending weapons to Russia?
Difficult to know, Carol. We actually don't know the answer to that question. Certainly, we were concerned enough to bring it up privately with our Chinese counterparts and publicly with all of you, and the vice president speaking to it in Munich. We took that seriously, but what their next step is and what's going to affect that, really, that's a question only they can answer. The president's strong belief, and he said this himself, is that this is not a move that would be in the best interest of the Chinese and their standing in the international community, which we know, they highly prize. More critically, we don't believe that they should see it as being in their best interest.
But it sounds like from what you're saying that you don't want to lean into the idea of threatening sanctions. Is that because you don't think that they will ultimately move in that direction? I'm just trying to get a sense of why seems to be a little bit of a hesitancy to talk in detail about how the U.S. could sanction China.
Secretary Blinken has been clear that there will be consequences, and he mentioned that sanctions could be one of those consequences. So, I mean, we've laid out that that there are tools available to not only the United States but to our allies and partners should China move in that direction. But ultimately, it's their choice to make, and we really strongly urge them to make the right choice here. Okay, thanks everybody.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Okay, and that is enough of that. Let's take a break. I'll come back and continue with a prominent Canadian lawyer getting kicked out of a Plierre Poilievre Conservative Rally.
Hello, world. Are you awake? Uniting humankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind.
So when I was a younger man and I was on the road every day, working as a broadcast journalist, covering a lot of politics, I was never kicked out of any political event, never denied access. But some people are. And I don't know what kind of reception I would, well, let me rephrase that. I don't know if I would be welcomed at every political rally these days. The mood out there is much different. The political environment has shifted. Today, I came across a video with Canadian lawyer Caryma Saad, and she went to a Plierre Poilievre event. Now, she's a political, I don't know, well, she describes herself, I think, as a satirist, practicing satire through her Twitter account. And so she shows up at this event, and this has happened to her before. Let me see if I can find, oh yes, I'm looking in the wrong place. Okay, that's part 2, because there are 2 parts to this. There it is. This is the one I'm looking for. All right. I don't like this. So I'm injecting a little opinion in here. But I don't like the way that they treat her. And I'll show you what they did to her at this Plierre Poilievre event. This is on her Twitter account. Here we go. So I guess she had a ticket. She was ready to go in or whatever. And this is what happened. Come on, catch up.
Hello. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You know the drill.
No, this isn't a Planned event.
Exactly.
Is it just conservatives have a blanket ban on you?
Well, you're pretty obvious on your Twitter what we.
I'm even wearing my colors.
I see that, but we're going to have to ask you to leave again. Move out to the hallway. You can watch through the windows there if you want.
Okay. So that was public.
This is all private in here. It's a private event. Yeah.
Okay. Did you watch the end of the trial for the trespass ticket?
I missed it.
It was dismissed.
I got some.
So I'm not welcome at any conservative events, it seems. I tried dressing for the part, but alas, watch out.
Thank you for being cooperative.
I'm not an unfriendly person. I'm just confused as to why politicians hate me. I've never said a single disrespectful word to this guy.
No, we see what you do. You put on Twitter. It's pretty obvious.
But I don't create this content. You guys create it. No, wait, hold on. We have to stay on this part of the hallway? Like just behind the yellow line there? Through like outside?
Well, just out here. You gotta leave this area.
Yeah, it's the yellow line.
Sure.
Thank
You as well, sir. Thank you.
I only booked my ticket yesterday, so I'm surprised you guys.
Through the line, please. Thank you.
But how am I going to hear? You gotta be kidding me.
But wait, there's more. There is more. Part 2. She gets ejected twice in one day. Gotta love this.
Something? Yeah, we were in the event. I was told that I can stand here and watch the event. I'm not allowed to watch it from inside. I'm not really sure why.
Okay. This is actually common area, and I work for the landlord, so I'm just gonna have to ask you to leave.
So we can't even see. When we talked to Zach, Zach said specifically that as long as I'm behind the yellow line.
But that's their space, and this is the landlord's space.
Okay.
So we're gonna ask you to leave.
Am I obstructing, or is this just? There's no.
Well, I don't understand why we're videotaping everything.
Well, I'm here to document the rally, and so this is the reception I've received at the rally.
Okay, I'm not comfortable with you videotaping me anymore, so if you could stop, please. Where she's not doing. I'm gonna ask you to leave, or I'll call security.
Am I? Zach, we're having an issue here with me standing.
Well, this is my. If you don't want me here, that's them. So that's
okay.
Can't you vouch for us, Zach?
All right. Well, it's really disappointing. We drove from Toronto to Queens.
I've already asked you politely to stop videotaping me.
Well, you've asked me kind of impolitely to get out of the hallway, but I'm not.
This is landlord's property.
Sure, I'm not disputing that. I just don't understand the rationale.
Please move her to a closer.
Okay, thank you. So Zach misled me. He said that I could stand behind the yellow line. Apparently not. I'm not allowed in the building to breathe the same air as Plierre Poilievre, which is honestly probably not a bad thing. Anyway, got some time to kill a Kitchener.
I kind of think it's a mistake to not let her in. As long as she's not disruptive in there, shouting or heckling or doing something like that. I think she seems to me to be a very reasonable person. Very intelligent. She's a lawyer. I don't think she would misbehave to any great degree. Just because you don't like somebody's Twitter posts. Maybe you could let her in and win her over with your arguments. Maybe if you treated her nicer, she might support you. When I've done public relations work for firms, well, even as a journalist, I just think you should let journalists in. Even if you might think that they might not write good things about you. You know why? Because they're going to write whatever they want anyway. So if you're having an event and you're a politician and you're out there in the public eye, I don't think you should run away from them. I think you should answer the hard questions. I think you should open yourself up to scrutiny. I think it works better because it opens the lines of communication. That's what politics should be about. And if you don't talk to them, they're just going to say whatever they want anyhow. So it doesn't save you. If you can't handle the heat, you should get out of the kitchen. Simple as that when it comes to politics. I'm not saying that's always the case for, say, a private company or an individual, but if you're a politician, just let them in. Just let them in. Answer the questions. Take the heat. You might find in the long run, you do better.
Fighting the Great Reset by leading the Great Resistance. Maverick News. The antivirus programs for your mind.
Justin Bieber has canceled the rest of his 2023 tour dates. Let me get this queued up for you. As you know, he is suffering from a medical condition that has left part of his face paralyzed. Where did we go here? Maybe I lost it. Too many things, too many things, too many things. Yeah, I guess I lost Justin Bieber. Well, he did. He canceled the rest of his tour dates. I know that. We can come back to it. But Nordstrom department stores closing all Canadian locations. Let's bring up image. Here we go. And why are they doing that? No reasonable expectation of profit. So they're closing all their Canadian stores. What's that mean? 2,500 jobs lost. They're based in Seattle. They have 6 Nordstrom and 7 Nordstrom Rack stores in Canada. They'll all be closed by the end of June. Its e-commerce business, Nordstrom.ca, was due to stop operations by the end of day today, I believe. Their chief executive officer, Eric Nordstrom, said the closures are the result of regular reviews the company conducts that challenged its longtime plans to, in his words, build and sustain a long-term business in Canada. He says, despite our best efforts, we do not see a realistic path to profitability for the Canadian business. In his statement today, he says that this decision will simplify our structure, intensify focus on our growth and profitability goals, and position us to create greater value for our shareholders. Nordstrom is an upscale department store chain, as you know, and it sells a mix of designer goods. And they first announced plans to expand to Canada in 2012. They opened their first store in Calgary in the Chinook Center in September of 2014. They expanded their presence with stores in the Rideau Center in Ottawa, the CF Pacific Center in Vancouver, and CF Eaton Center, Yorkdale Shopping Center, and CF Sherway Gardens in Toronto. Anyway, you're getting the picture. The company said its rack stores would deliver savings up to 70% on apparel, accessories, home, beauty, and travel items from 38 of the 50 brands already sold in its Canadian department stores. The company says it's a reflection of, the economic conditions that we're currently facing. The Canadian wind down comes as Nordstrom released its fourth quarter results, which included net earnings of $119 million in the period ended as of today. That compared with net earnings of $200 million US during the same period 1 year ago. As a result of the Canadian closures, Nordstrom expects to record $300 US to $350 million US in pre-tax charges in the first quarter of fiscal 2023. The wind down is expected to result in roughly $400 million in decline in net sales. Interesting to see this coming just as Zellers, the Canadian iconic discount department store brand, makes a comeback. They're reopening Zellers stores in Canada as Nordstrom closes. Such is the retail business. They come and they go. And sometimes the bigger they are, the harder they fall. Don't go.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Together, Yahoo! Say, kids, what time is it? Okay, gang, let's go. It's howdy doody time. It's howdy doody time. Bob Smith and howdy too. Say howdy doody doo. Let's give a rousing cheer. 'Cause howdy doody's here. It's time to start.
Okay, there he is, Justin Bieber. He has canceled his remaining justice. Thought it was worth noting because we hadn't mentioned it here yet. Representatives for Bieber and Ticketmaster have not really responded to this, but Bieber himself did address this. Here we go. So let's roll, Mr. Bieber.
Hey everyone, Justin here. I wanted to update you guys on what's been going on. Obviously, as you can probably see from my face, I have this syndrome called Ramsay-Hunt syndrome, and it is from this virus that attacks the nerve in my ear and my facial nerves and has caused my face to have paralysis. As you can see, this eye is not blinking. I can't smile on this side of my face. This nostril will not move. So there's full paralysis in this side of my face. So for those who are frustrated by my cancellations of the next shows, I'm just physically, obviously not capable of doing them. This is pretty serious, as you can see. I wish this wasn't the case, but obviously my body's telling me I gotta slow down. And I hope you guys understand.
Justin Bieber. What can I say about that? I don't know. Those are his words. A lot of speculation, of course, about what caused that. I can only tell you what I tell you and show you what I show you, and you can reach your own conclusions, I guess. Don't go away. We will go to the phones when we come back.
Hello, world. Are you awake? Uniting humankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, phone lines are almost set up. Here's the number to call.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975. Free. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now, at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program. For your mind.
Okay, let's go to our first caller. Guess who?
Ha ha! You got the mob that salt the man without a plan to master all disasters? Coming first.
Hello, sir. How are you tonight?
Pretty good, Rick. Pretty good. I do like what happened in the U.S. today. They're acknowledging the whereabouts where the what we call it, the scamdemic occurred in Wuhan. Now, it echoes exactly what Donald Trump said the whole time. It came out of a lab, right? And they're admitting it. Mainstream media is admitting it all. Okay, and they just look like a bunch of fools. Now, the conspiracy theorists, okay, that they were right the whole time. I'll tell you that much. There was no conspiracy. The conspiracy was the cover-up that they tried to pull on the people, right? And now to blame China for it, that's what they're trying to do. Okay, I don't know what to make of all of it, I'll tell you. But the Chinese, in my eyes, are much stronger than North America by whole. And if they keep running their gates, the Chinese will probably steamroll America like no tomorrow. Taiwan's not an issue for China. It never was. The Americans are making it an issue. War sells, makes money, right? Look at the Ukraine.
Yeah. Yeah, it is about the money, man, largely. You're right about that.
As for the independent journalists, the lawyer, whatever, okay, trying to get into the conservative party there just to hear what they're saying and ask some questions, that's 100% wrong. Okay, because you know what? I don't even know who she is, and I don't really care who she is. But when you start locking people out that way, look out. The mouth of the South's on its way, Mr. Plierre Poilievre. I'm going to have lots to say, and I don't give a shit. Get your security, get your police, get whoever you want, okay? I know what I know, and I'm going to let it out. Okay, I'm not going to be fooled by any of these clowns. The Chinese interference, like I said yesterday, all three parties are complacent in it. Okay, and people wonder why we're a banana republic.
Yeah.
Civil wars have started on less, Rick. Right?
Yes, sir.
I don't want to see a civil war in Canada. They've started for a lot less. Okay, and Mr. Trudeau, his days are numbered. He's not going to get from under this. But do we have another? How long is an inquiry going to take? How long is it going to take for them to get an inquiry going? So now we got to put up with this fool?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I say, I don't think Trudeau's going to want that to happen.
Well, something's going to happen. Now, if you don't call for it and don't look at the bad people. So, there's civil unrest everywhere in Canada. look in the mirror. You created it,
Yeah, that's right.
right?
Yeah.
And as for Poilievre, not to say, yeah, I do think there was interference. Just admit that there was interference and call for an election. And if the NDP don't stand by it, now we know.
Yeah.
But don't sit there and blatantly say, oh, I think it was a fair election. At the end of the day, you're a fucking liar, Pierre Poilievre. Okay, you had my vote. You had my vote. You had me at a hole, Mr. Pierre Poilievre. Not anymore. So it is what it is.
So what
Go
do
ahead,
you
Rick.
what do you do then, Leo, if you're not going to vote for Pierre? If it comes down to that, and you don't see him as a viable option, what are you looking at?
Well, I really hope the UPC get a federal party going, because I really like what Danielle Smith's doing in Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
There's another option on the table.
Yeah, I think that would be hard to accomplish before the next election, especially if it's only months away. That's not going to happen. But
100%. So you know what? Unfortunately, the only option on the table is the Greens and Mad Max, and I'm not voting Green. That's a fact, Jack. So
yeah.
It looks like I'm headed towards Mad Max again, and
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people will be. That just hurts the Conservative Party by what he said yesterday. He should not have said that. He should have known, yeah, if there's corruption or if there's interference, okay, and I do think there was interference, admit that there was interference, because he does know there was interference, because we've been talking about this now for what, 6 months, the Chinese interference now?
Mm-hmm. But what is it? What is it exactly that he said in the news conference that you didn't like? That he accepted the results of the election? He didn't like that? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I didn't like that because, if you know there's interference, how can you accept the results of the election? He knows there was interference. Everybody knows there was interference. And as bad as mainstream media is, it was mainstream media that broke the story. Global news.
Yeah.
So maybe they're not getting the kickbacks, $1 billion like CBC, and it just came to haunt Mr. Trudeau, and they released it, right? And for Trudeau to say, "Oh, we can't trust in CSIS," I don't think we could trust in the RCMP because they're not laying any fraud charges or anything. They've already given back $200,000 of the contributions. So anybody that settles before a court says to settle is usually guilty. You know where I'm going, Rick?
Oh yeah, I understand. With regard to the election result,
I hope it all.
I think that he's been.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's a difficult thing, and as I said last night, I think Poilievre sort of did. I view it a little differently because I think he did the responsible thing instead of the political thing yesterday, when he said that he accepts the results of the election, and by that I mean, I don't know if there was enough meddling that took place to actually change the result. The reality is, it's too you can't change what's happened in the past. You have to be careful what you say today because of what could happen in the future. So you don't want to rip the country apart, but at the same time, I agree that I think we need to have an election again because of this potential meddling that took place, so that we can clear the air, I guess. But I don't know that it's healthy or good for the country to throw that fuel on the fire of discontent at this point, when there's the only thing that can really be gained is what comes now. We can't, it doesn't let you revisit the election. And I don't know that the outcome overall of the election the last time around would have changed appreciably. I understand, man. It's a difficult. I understand where you're coming from, but
I think transparency and honesty would have been a good key for the Conservative parties, just to say it. Hey, yeah, we do think there was some interference that happened, let's get to the elections. Let's make this free and fair. There'd have been calm at the end of the day.
Yeah, I
Now,
think
by
you
them
know,
covering it up,
it's how you phrase it.
we accept it.
I think maybe he was just too defined.
I think he's full of shit.
Too abrupt in
honestly,
that
Rick.
thing, but
I think we're going to replace one evil with a worse evil at the end of the day. And if that happens, look out, Canadians, because you do have the far right out there. They're out there.
Mhm.
So it is what it is on that. I like what the Magic said. The CSIS reported it, and the RCMP shelved it. Here we go again with the RCMP and their cover-ups. I get it. You're a federal entity in law, but you should be impartial to politics.
Yeah.
People break the law. It's the RCMP's fucking job to make the charges and make them stand. Not just shelve it. Oh, you're a prime minister. You're sitting prime minister. These guys got immunity for everything, man, and it's sickening.
Mm-hmm.
We're missing a lot of money on the table. Canada's in peril of going, I don't know, bankrupt, I'd say. Okay, and the RCMP are not making any charges. When they know, the common citizen knows, okay, when you can't keep, especially a scamdemic, they lost $1 billion or $2 or $1 billion or $2 billion to India. They'll never recoup. Who's at fault for that? You could easily, with a computer, snatch up somebody's bank account, shut them down, take their house, throw them in jail, but they're missing money and they don't know how to account for it. Sickening, buddy. Sickening. The country is making me sick.
Well, here's a
it is brilliant.
Here's a cartoon for you. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, well, a political cartoon. Says, I always figured COVID-19 originated in that Wuhan lab, but now that the FBI says it did, I have to wonder.
I love satire. I do. Who did that? Is that
That's
the guy that's doing all the cartoons? Wycliffe?
From the Creators Syndicate. I can't read his signature. I'm not sure what his name is. S. Kelly. S. Kelly. Yeah.
Well, as Canadians, we can still laugh. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's one thing nobody will ever take away from us is our humor, right? But we are a patient society, I'll tell you. Very patient, because this shit wouldn't fly in other countries, I'll tell you.
Well,
it would not.
With the censorship that surrounded the Wuhan story, it's a miracle that we're even having this conversation and that we have this perspective on it today, because the censorship was so heavy at the time when it first came out. I mean, if you uttered these words at that time, you were automatically labeled a conspiracy theorist.
Well, look at Fauci, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look what he has to say about the jabs and everything else, right? The guy's a clown.
Yeah.
So where do we draw the line? Supposedly there's 8 million people that have died from the results of whatever, the leak. We'll call it the leak.
Mm-hmm.
And then how many more have had issues from the jab, from the potion? Lots. And they're going to continue to happen, right? So, if they were right about one thing, the leak came from there. They're probably right about all the side effects and everything else of this shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Americans now trying to, they're like drug dealers in Toronto. Okay. And what happens with the drug dealers in Toronto? They take over a turf. And if you don't sell dope for them on their turf, there's a war. Okay. The Americans are no different with their gunplay, selling guns worldwide. Okay. And the juice, you don't take it, right? They'll wrap you up. It's sickening, man. The whole system's sickening. And you know what? At 52, shit, if I make it to 72, I'll be happy. That's 20 years. I don't know if I could take it, though. It's sad what's going on.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't ever want to see civil war in Canada, but the shit that's going on right now, like I said, I've seen countries go into civil war for a lot less. So Mr. Trudeau, if he was smart, he would resign. And I bet if he resigned, it would all go away. He'd probably have some kind of protection, right? But he's not going to resign because he's cocky. Okay, he's a minority government that's acting like a majority government for the people. And the only reason why he has that majority is because of our friends who? The NDP. Give me a break.
Yeah, well, if
So vote wisely.
he was a true leader, he would have chosen his words more carefully a year ago when the convoy rolled into town, and before that. I mean, he should be bringing people together and promoting tolerance, understanding, and cohesiveness nationally, and mutual respect among people who have different opinions. You know, tolerance. But he's not tolerant.
Hey, every prime minister we've had in Canada has had tolerance and patience and let the other side speak.
Yeah.
Then we get this clown in here, and if you speak and it's not what he likes, he designates you as what? Misogynist, rapist, terrorist. Really?
Yeah.
You know, we have a false election, and that's bigger than anything we're going to see. And good for you, Rick, because, well, I don't know if it's good or bad for you. You'll be airing live probably 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day during the next inquiry. Right? And I'll be watching it.
Yeah. I hope they do.
It is what it is.
Personally, I'd love to see them have the inquiry. I think the country would benefit from it in the long run. But, you know, because we're so close to an election, and I think he will call one soon, I don't think he's going to want
Well,
that.
I'm skeptical about any inquiry, especially after the last inquiry, because like I said, if you thought there was a lot of redactments in the last inquiry, what are we going to really know in this inquiry? You know, they are redacted for who? For him. And it's pretty sad because the public needs to know exactly what's going on here, right? And this, I'm sure this is not the first time that there's been interference by other countries in Canadian politics. But this is the first time somebody got caught.
Well, time to move on.
Sitting
Thank
Prime
you.
Minister.
Thank you, Leo.
Thank you, Rick.
You have a good night, sir. Okay, here's John.
Hey, Rick.
How's it going, my friend?
Rough day today.
Oh, yeah? Why is that?
Oh, I don't know. I went and got an oil change, and the guy said, "Oh, you got a leak in your exhaust, but you should maybe go get it looked at. Just maybe a weld will do it because it's right."
Yeah.
So I went to Midas, and they wanted $2,500.
How much?
For $2,500 for an exhaust system. I says, I'm not paying $2,500. Just weld the goddamn thing. He goes, I can do that. He says, it probably cost you $200 to weld it. I said, $200? It's going to take you 10 minutes. Anyways, he welded it, charged me $200. It's stainless steel, but stainless steel's cheap there, Rick. You know, copper's expensive. You know, aluminum's expensive, but stainless steel is probably the cheapest metal you can buy right now.
He charged you $200 to do a little weld on a pipe?
Yeah, $200. The system is fine. It's just where the catalytic converter, where it joins, it just kind of leaking a bit, right where it joins in there. Right?
Uh-huh.
It's all stainless steel. So the guy welded it. $200, yeah. What a rip off. Today was a bad day. Everything today. What a waste of a day today. Anyhow, I got new flavor ice cream out, Rick.
Oh, yeah? That sounds exciting.
Cricket ice cream. Cricket ice cream.
Oh, don't even. Oh, my God.
It's got dried crickets in it. You should see it. I was watching it, and people are eating it. It's got all these dried crickets in it.
Come on.
People are eating it. You can find it online.
Are you
hey,
serious?
Order some. Cricket ice cream. Oh, yeah. Everybody loves cricket ice cream out there. Who doesn't like ice cream? I just finished the last bit of ice cream I had, but I'm afraid to buy some more. Who knows what surprise you'll find in it.
There it is.
Cricket ice cream. Yeah.
There it is.
Is that a video you got up?
Just
There's a
pictures,
video
just
up.
images.
Yeah. Well, you can see the crickets in it.
Oh, John.
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
Look at the bottom one. Blow it up for the guys out there. They're going to just be craving for ice cream after this. What the world coming to? I don't know.
Oh, man. People. What is wrong with people?
Well, selling. People are buying it. I was watching this one person eating worm meal dinner. Delicious, they said. Worm meal dinner. Oh, yeah. I don't know. I'm afraid to eat steak now. Probably horse steak. Horse meat.
Wow.
We can't eat anything anymore, Rick. I don't know. I think I better go on a diet. Even fish, man. I don't want to eat fish anymore. They're running out of fish, so they're cloning them with some. They're not healthy for you.
Cloning them?
I don't know.
They don't.
Huh?
They don't clone.
Cloning.
They don't
Oh, yeah.
clone fish. They have fish
Oh, yeah.
farms.
Out by Newfoundland, all the
Cloning.
cod and everything.
What do you mean
Yes.
cloning?
Biological. They're biological fish. They're not natural.
Well,
They're making them. I don't know if they're cloning. They're making them out of chemicals and shit. Yeah.
What?
It's just, I don't know. I don't know what to eat anymore, Rick. I know what I want to eat, but there's one person who's got the oldest chicken in the world. It's 20 years old. His name is Peanut. It made the World Guinness Book of Records. Peanut, 20-year-old chicken. I can make some tasty chicken sandwiches out of that one.
Are you talking about
And it's probably
biofloc fish farming? Yeah. What is biofloc fish farming and
They're
how it
making
can
them
help
in
farmers
Newfoundland
and
and they're throwing
entrepreneurs
them back.
increase their income? Biofloc-based farming system is the newest technology for the promotion of intensive fish and shrimp production in a restricted area without significantly increasing the use of basic natural resources of land and water. What is it? Biofloc-based fish farming is a person having a small land holding blah, blah, blah. The new scheme it's fish farming. That's what it is. It's fish farming. They do it in
the Newfoundland.
I don't know what you're talking about.
In the Bay of Fundy.
Beyond fish farming.
Okay, I don't know if I got it right, but I was watching the show, Bay of Fundy. I watch a lot of.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't
I like-
I'll look it up, and hopefully I'll have some information on it tomorrow, so we get the actual facts.
Yeah, okay.
So
Look
we're
it up.
not-
Look
so
it
we're
up.
not
It's in
sitting
Bay
here
of Fundy there in Newfoundland. They're running out of fish because all the fishermen from Portugal and everything, they're coming over here to steal our fish, and they're scooping them all up. And the fish is depopulating there, so they're not real. They're like, I don't know if cloning is the right word, but
No, it's fish farming.
they're not.
They breed them. It's like a fish hatchery, and then they get the eggs, I think. And I don't know a lot about it. There was a fella here in town.
Look into it.
There was, in my town,
Look into
he
it.
bought an old factory, and he tried to do fish farming inside the factory for a while, but he wasn't successful with it. He had problems with the fish eating their own waste, and they would get diseased and die, and he had real problems, so he had to shut it down. But they do have successful fish farming operations. That's why when you go to the supermarket and you look, it's like this is wild caught, or you can have
That's
caught.
what I eat. Wild caught.
Yeah, because that's stuff that they catch out in the ocean. Other stuff, a lot of it is from fish farms where they have
That's
confined
Chinese
areas,
fish, yeah.
and they farm the fish, right? So you don't have to go fishing for them. They breed them there, and
up the street from my house, this guy took me there. He used to buy fish. He goes, "Come on." I said, "I wouldn't." it's like these big steel tanks, like a pool.
Mhm.
Like you climb up a ladder and they breed fish in there, right?
Yeah.
And then you buy the fish.
Yeah.
I said, I wouldn't buy this. It's all polluted. It smells when you go in there. But I only eat wild caught. But look into the Atlantic there. The fish is going. You're a good researcher.
That's been a problem for a long time. So 6 months or so ago, we ran a whole. We had about a half an episode talking about the fishery in the fishing industry out in the Maritimes, and the quotas that were imposed, and how a lot of people out there just can't make a living fishing anymore. It's been devastating for the economy in the Maritimes. And that goes back to the days of John Crosby and the federal government, the Mulrooney era, right? And Canada. So it's a big it is a big issue. It is certainly an issue because they had too much overfishing for too long. They didn't maintain the stocks.
Fish that breed in there, they're biologically they're not natural fish. It's like
it's because they're fed differently, right? They're fed like whatever they feed them, grains, I guess. And so they're fed differently. They're in a confined area. Yeah, they're not out in the wild. So they're not, there are some arguments suggesting that fish from a fish farm might not be as healthy, that you don't get the same, amino acids and things like that in the fish meat. So, but I will look it up for tomorrow. And we'll maybe talk about it.
Look it up. I like to brush up on it because I don't know. Also, like the Ohio rail derailment.
Yep.
Everybody's getting sick there. Even the people working there removing the contamination.
Mm-hmm.
They're all getting sick.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bad spill, and it's going into the water, into the land. It goes down the Ohio River.
Well,
that's the prime farming land in the world, pretty well.
No, it's not.
It's
not. No, I watched your video that you sent me. I watched.
Yeah. You seen that? Okay.
I watched it. But I don't want to run it because it's full of all kinds of.
No.
It's full of all kinds of incorrect information. And he conflates a lot of things and scares the crap out of a lot of people. There's some truth in it, but he makes a lot of mistakes in that particular video. He makes a lot of mistakes. Definitely. He mispronounces things. He has no idea what he's talking about, John. That guy. Not on that subject. Now that's a channel that I know focuses more on financial stuff. Maybe he knows his business when it comes to money, but when it comes to chemicals and the environment, that guy's out to lunch. He hasn't got a clue.
Okay.
Not a clue. It's a bad spill, no question about it. It's hazardous. I have no doubt that some people are getting sick from exposure to it, but what that guy is talking about, no, sorry, man. That thing was like he talked about all kinds of, that thing went on for almost a half an hour, and he was talking about all kinds of unrelated things and connecting other things. He's talking about freaking balloons and all this other shit that has nothing at all to do with that.
Well, the balloon was a distraction. That's all it was.
Blah, blah, blah. Let me deal in the facts. Okay.
You know the liberals, eh?
I watched it, John, please.
The media.
No, John, please get that guy out of your head. Go watch something else because you can believe it if you want to believe whatever you want to believe from that guy, but he doesn't even know what parts per billion is, and doesn't even define how he's referring to parts per billion.
Farmland there.
It's not. It's that farmland. Farm. They have. I talked about that the other night. They have orchards there, and the orchards. That agri industry there has helped to replace some of the, or it's helped employ people after losing a lot of their industries, like they had tire factories and things like that in the area before.
Yeah.
And so that they do have an orchard industry there, but that is by no means the best farmland in the country. You're telling me that is better farmland than what they have out in California with the vineyards and,
Well, I don't know.
you know,
that,
and
but
like I can, or, you know, where they grow all the grain. And I mean, come on. That's Ohio. That's not the best farmland in the nation.
you know, the funny thing he said that kind of blew my mind was that movie called White Noise came
Yeah.
out about
Yeah.
6 months ago, and that was about a rail derailment in Ohio.
Yeah.
And look what happens
Yeah.
after that movie comes out.
Yeah.
So something don't smell right.
Well,
something don't smell.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay,
You know,
sir.
think about it.
I have thought about it. I watched
Yeah.
it. Yeah, that there's other lots of other information out there and all kinds of other. That particular video, that guy he was out of his element. That's not his area. He should stick to the financial stuff. And
Yeah.
okay, that's what he
Yeah.
should do, because that's not his. Like I didn't see any other things on his channel relating to anything like that. And then he makes that. But you know, you believe what you want. I'm not going to tell you what to believe, and I think you should. People can watch.
I believe something's not right there. We're not being told the truth. I believe.
Well,
So,
okay, so I'm just gonna what is it that you think you're not being told?
well, why there? Why right by the river
Because
there?
that's a main rail terminal. That's why, and that's where all the switching takes place.
All right. Well,
That's where it's a rail hub. It's a major rail town. That's why the town is there. That's part of, you know, one of their main industries in a sense.
and then they're
right?
telling people it's safe to go back home. and people are working there trying to clean it up are all getting really sick. That doesn't make sense to me. So, you know what I'm saying there, Rick? They're saying it's safe to go back home.
Yeah.
Safe to go back home, everybody.
And you don't. So you
Meanwhile,
think that
people
they're just telling people to go back home when it's not safe? Because why?
People working there are getting sick.
Yeah. Okay. But
Trying to clean it up.
Why do you think they're telling people to go back home?
You've already said you can go back home. It's safe now.
Yeah, I know they said that, and you don't believe that.
I don't believe that. No, sir.
So
not
you're
for a
telling
minute.
me that you think that they're telling the people to go back home so they will die because they want them to die.
I don't know. I don't know what the hell
So they're
doing.
intentionally killing the people by telling them it's okay to go back to their homes.
That's the plan right now.
So you're
the White
saying
House
that the
when
people who
they
are telling
can.
the people to go home, that they're murderers
Yeah,
because they know it's not
at
safe
that.
to
What's
go
his
home
name?
anyway.
Look at Beaver. The guy's brainwashed.
Yeah.
You know, look, Wuhan. I'm surprised nobody's in jail right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Fauci there should be in jail, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, and Trudeau should be in jail. I sent you something, by the way, explaining what's going on. So I'll mail it out this weekend. You'll get it next week. But what I'm trying to get is, I don't trust the government anymore.
Yeah,
that's all
well,
I'm
that's
trying to tell
probably
you.
wise.
I don't,
It's probably wise
I
to
don't
not
trust.
trust the government. I don't trust the government either.
No. Why is nobody in jail with that? With Wuhan, with the hoochie Gucci, you know, and you know, like a friend of mine, he just bought me a ticket for Guns N' Roses. They're coming because he doesn't want to go by himself. And then he says, "Oh, Kiss is coming too." I says, "Yeah, you gotta be fourth boost to get it." You know, that band is so. You know Gene Simmons, eh?
Yeah.
This guy. I used to like him. I don't like him anymore. He's really pushing everybody. Anyways, I hate people. Listen, I want to be free as a bird. I don't want. If you want to go out and do whatever you want, get whatever you want, go for it. But anyways, A friend of mine just went to she went to the Bahamas. She's not vaxxed. She flew to Florida and then took a boat. And the way to do it today is you got to drive across the border to Buffalo. I guess you can go to Windsor. There's an airport there, and then you can fly from there anywhere you want in the States. And that's how you do it. Till I think May. They're gonna May. They're gonna remove everything, all the flight mandates. So I think it's May. But had a great time in the Bahamas. I wouldn't go to Bahamas anyways, but but that's how you do it, Rick. If you want to fly. John, my new travel agent. All right, Kim, there you go. You want to go to Florida or somewhere? Just drive across the border. That's funny though. You can drive across and drive back. They don't ask for nothing. But as soon as you jump on a plane, it's a different story, eh? Unless you go to the States, then you don't have to worry about that. Motley Crue playing massive crowds. Yeah, I've seen Motley Crue. I met them in person a couple of times. I got all their autographs.
Well, you mentioned Gene Simmons, and they're on their final tour. What are they calling it? The
Oh, great! That's what they said last time I seen them. I seen them last time at the Scotiabank. I was right up front, man. It was great. But now you got to show papers to go see them.
Yeah.
Gene Simmons, he's a big WEF guy, man. I can't stand people like that. I will not support him. Sorry. Kiss. I've seen Kiss about 30 times.
30 times?
Yeah.
You must
at least 30 times. Yeah.
You must have a hell of a debt. Aren't their tickets expensive?
The first time I seen him was at Varsity Stadium down on Bloor Street. Varsity Stadium, a little school football arena.
How much do they charge for tickets to a Kiss concert?
Listen, I was paying $12 a ticket back 20 years ago. $10 to $12 a ticket. Maple Leaf Gardens, like I seen Black Sabbath, Ozzy, everybody. I was paying $12 ticket. Now, $240 for Guns N' Roses, but they're really good. Guns N' Roses, I've seen them lots. I've seen them both 6 times. They play for like 3 hours straight. No backup band. They really do a rocking show. Guns N' Roses is a show. Is a good show. I don't know if you're into Guns N' Roses, but they're really good. But Kiss, I like their lightning. They got a lot of lights and flashes, and it's a good stage show. But it's getting expensive though, Rick. So, but I'm going. If it's free, I'm there. But I do. Lately, I've been getting a lot of free stuff, but rock on, John. Yeah, well, life, who knows where we're heading there, Rick, because you heard Levinsky the other day. Hey, he wants to send your kids now to fight.
Yep.
Like, it's probably, hey, Russia's, they're one tough son of a bitch. They're not going to beat them. No, the only way they're going to beat them is if you get everybody involved, NATO and everybody involved. And if you do that, everybody else is going to get involved. And then we're doomed. Yeah. So live it up while you can. What can I tell you? So.
Well, I certainly share your concern about what's going on over there in Ohio with that train derailment. Anytime you have a chemical spill like that and there's a lot of money involved and big companies, I think they'll sometimes try to take the cheap way out, but sometimes the cheap way out ends up being the most expensive way. So I certainly share your concern. And if I was living in that town, I would be very, very concerned too about my property values, the health of my family and all of those issues. So I'd be looking into it very carefully as well. But I'm
Look at
not
Joe
there. I
Biden.
don't live there, and I don't know exactly what the situation is on the ground. I do know that video that you showed me. That guy doesn't know anything really about what he's talking about. But there's a lot of other good information out there.
He doesn't know, yeah, but something doesn't add up for me. Like, look at Joe Biden. What? He's got no interest in it.
Yeah.
He covers it up with balloons. Hey, oh, he got more balloons. He got more balloons. You know, like.
Yeah, well, that was all pretty silly. All that stuff too. $400,000 missiles to shoot down balloons, but whatever. Anyway, my friend, we better move on. We've been on for almost half an hour.
Okay, where's the Church of Satan?
Oh, it's in we had that in our Balenciaga special broadcast.
Yeah, is it in Wichita? Maybe not Wichita. No, it's in the States somewhere. I know that.
Yeah,
there's one. It's still there. I want to go visit it. Anyways, it's where they filmed that movie. Wichita. It's in the States, anyways. It's got a witchy name.
I'm just looking it up. Temple Church of Satan, established in 1966 by Anton LaVey in San Francisco.
It's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not into that shit, but I like to check it out. It's in out east there, near Boston. That's where it is.
Yeah.
Not Wichita. But it's still there. That's the only one around, eh? People still. I don't know.
And then they've got this other one out in, I think it's in Oklahoma.
Huh. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not into that stuff, Rick.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
No, well, a lot of the music and stuff, they talk about it, they sing about it, but I don't, devil worshippers, screw them. I'm not into that stuff.
We better take some other calls here. Better move along.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Bye.
Have a great night,
nice
my man.
talking to you.
I always love it when you call. Take care. Hello, Tony. How are you tonight?
Oh, good. How are you, Rick? Your last caller. He's quite the character, eh?
Oh, he's a good man. I like John, and I like to challenge him.
I mean that positive.
Yeah, I like to challenge him and make him.
Well, it's just like you were talking about that one guy who was full of beans about. It's just like the video that somebody did about snake venom in the water supply and all that, and I'm going, that just doesn't fly.
Yeah,
it's one of those bizarre theories to just fake people out. I don't know what it's done for.
Yeah, and me as a journalist,
your main top.
Yeah, as a journalist, I think we have to be very careful that everything we present, especially now, that we stick to the facts, that we present very factual information, because the minute they catch you in something that's not true, then they use that to discredit everything that you've said, right? That's why I think it's so important to be careful. Yeah.
Well, speaking, your main topic was the Communist Chinese Party interference in Canadian elections.
Yep.
Well, do you remember back, was it early December when Trudeau got addressing down from, I can never say his name correctly 2 times in a row, the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party, Jinping, or
Xi Jinping, yeah.
Xi Jinping, yeah. He was dressing down Trudeau, like Trudeau looked like a whipped puppy when he walked away. And the translator didn't even translate everything that he said, but it probably wasn't anything you could repeat on the air. Well, I'm just thinking, Communist China is not even bothering now. They're so brazen. They're not even bothering to try and cover up their world domination intent. Before they used to, at least marginally try to cover it up, but now they're not even bothering. You're talking about your previous caller about the fishing being over. Well, Communist China, their fishing boats, they dredge up everything. Yeah. And about how we're getting rid of plastic bags here in Canada. Yeah. Well, I think it was a French film crew caught, just isn't one or two, but many Chinese ships. They just dump all their plastic overboard. Plastic waste, I should say. They just dump it into the ocean. Yeah. And, we're trying to prevent all this, plastic and all that. And it's like China is probably dumping 100 times what we do into the ocean. I'm just thinking, holy smokes, the plastic that the bags they're replacing it, supposedly reusable ones, apparently they take longer to biodegrade than the plastic bags that they're replacing. Is that right? I think that's what I've heard. It'll take a lot longer to biodegrade, and those bags don't last forever. Eventually they wear out too.
Don't know.
So Rick, what else is going on? Like, you remember how you had that little comic up on the screen there? Yeah. About now the FBI confirms that the COVID-19 originated in the Wuhan lab. I'm going, well, doing the mock shock. We were thinking that 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Or more.
Yeah.
And Trump was saying that, and they were calling him every name in the book, former President Trump. And I'm going, what's the other shoe that's going to drop? The revelations that we all knew 2 or 2.5 years ago. What do you think is the next thing that conspiracy theory that's going to become actual conspiracy?
What do I think the next one is? Oh,
yeah.
Well, I don't know what's still.
Is that a shot?
I don't know. That's
there's still a lot.
I don't know. I don't know.
I would say it, but I don't want to cause more problems than anything.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we do have to be careful about everything we say on this platform, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's why I won't say it. I just think probably in 6 months it will. 6 or 7 months, and they'll be blaming somebody else for it, of course. But anyway, so with Communist China you were telling me last time we spoke, they offered to negotiate a peace. Mm-hmm. Well, apparently they weren't supplying Russia with weaponry, but now that basically President Biden has told them, shot it down, China is going to be supplying. They've got all kinds of older munitions, but it's still good for their artillery shells, you name it, and they're going to be supplying Russia. So it's unbelievable. Like Russia's got these hyperbaric missiles that when they explode, they go a mile in every direction, and they suck all the oxygen out of the air, and then it burns everything to a crisp. And I've heard so many people say, "Oh, Putin should be taken out. Putin should be taken out, like assassinate him and all that." Well, there are worse people than him waiting in the wings to take over, because he's actually been quite restrained. I don't agree that he invaded Ukraine. I think it was wrong, but I think that there are worse leaders than him that want this war done over with, and they wouldn't care about civilian casualties. Putin has actually been quite restrained. Yeah. And I'm not a Putin apologist. I'm just saying that now if you put China and Russia together, we're in deep trouble. We've pushed Russia into China's arms, and you know what? That's a deadly combo. Like the one Colonel McGregor was saying that U.S. Navy made the mistake, the U.S. military made the mistake of putting too much into aircraft carrier groups.
Yeah.
And they're just sitting targets. the real emphasis should have been on submarines. And the submarine fleet of the U.S. is smaller, but it's very good. But submarines are more effective, and carrier groups are just big targets. You know, it's, I hate to say it's old technology, and you know, you have to. Generals are always one war behind, and unfortunately, I think that's the case. China's military is growing exponentially. Their fleet, their naval, you can imagine their subs. So, you know, not to be a downer, but you know, we're Canada. We're sending more Leopard tanks. Is it 4 more?
Yep.
What are we going to use for our military?
I don't think they care.
And you know, those CF-18s, aren't they flying death traps? Like, aren't they like being held together with Scotch tape and binding wire? Or like, I think they're. I think I don't know even how many they got left. I don't know how many have crashed. The pilots have had to bail out. But they're what, 30 years old?
I think they're 40. At least they're
that old.
They may have. Yeah, they probably purchased them later. So yeah, maybe 30. But you know, the CF-18 as a jet, I think, is 40-year-old technology now, somewhere in that range.
So you basically they're pretty much useless. So
yeah, they
we're
fly.
sending what left.
That's why they only really fly support roles. The Canadian jets are not really used for combat missions anymore. So,
well, a number of years ago, we had the right idea of getting subs, but unfortunately, they bought some junk from Britain, wasn't it?
Old used subs, yep. Yep.
So they had the right idea, but the wrong the wrong purchase. They should have got brand new ones.
Yeah, especially when it comes to stuff like that. That's like technology. It's like a computer, right? Why do you want to buy somebody's old used, broken down piece of crap computer when you're trying to defend your country, right? You want the newest computer that's not obsolete.
Well, like in our north of the Arctic, we need more. We need more surveillance up there, and you need ships that are icebreakers. And meanwhile, we're not even keeping up. Like, I think NATO's in trouble. I think that's ready to fall apart. But that's another topic for another day. Yeah. Anyhow, thanks, Rick, for taking my call.
Yeah, thanks for calling in. Talk to you later. Here's Jeremy.
Bye now.
Take care. Hey, Jeremy, how are you tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. Just, I think I got a good name for John. I'm going to call him John the Revelator.
Why do you call him that?
Because he knows all these apocalyptic scenarios.
That's because his favorite website is welovetrump.com. That's where he gets most of his news.
You know, I have a feeling that website is probably just not a good place to go for legitimate information.
Some of it seems
to
be
okay,
your and other stuff's kind of clickbait.
You see what I mean, though, right? So they feed you real things while at the same time throwing you things that are pretty questionable.
Yep.
And there's lots of websites like that.
Yeah.
But so something I wanted to address today was kind of the point I was getting to, I don't know, a week or so ago, was how the word consensus is thrown around.
Yeah.
And how they use that in an argument to really throw their weight around in an argument and try to, really take that authoritative role in the argument or the debate, right? Just by throwing in consensus, right?
Right.
So, and
consensus is not a proof of anything. Consensus is not a proof of anything.
That's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah.
And that's why I was trying to lead people to Dr. Patrick Moore, because in his book, he really emphasizes heavily on that. And he breaks down on one of his pages in the book, really how science, like how they have that 97%, scientists agree, blah, 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 right?
Yep.
It's just how they really throw their weight around and try to maneuver, right? It's a maneuver and how they try to win an argument. And did you notice how none of the journalists, when John Kirby was talking, just in the video you were playing, not one journalist understands the concept of consensus does not constitute truth, evidence, right?
Yeah.
So I think part of the problem is incompetence or unwillingness to really call out these people for their intellectual maneuvering,
Mm-hmm.
because it's really manipulative and it's a form of, intimidation, really. Because who am I, one person, to stand up against 97% of scientists, right? Or whatever.
Mm-hmm. So
it's just a stupid maneuver that these manipulative people play. And that's just basically what I wanted to get at with that subject. But also, you have consensus on Wuhan. So actually, is there actual consensus and evidence, right? Evidence within that consensus that this, I call it Communism 19 virus. So did it actually come out of Wuhan, or what about these Ukraine biolabs, right? So I think there's a fair debate there. I think a lot of evidence leads to Wuhan, but, I think that debate is fair.
Yeah.
On the shenanigans that goes on in Ukraine, right? So I see this war having to do with a few different reasons why Vladimir Putin is in Ukraine. And I think the West, largely the United States, meddling in Ukraine, right? NATO, and then obviously they got some beef with territory, right?
Yep.
But anyway, Wuhan is to be determined. I think a lot of evidence supports Wuhan, but So that's what I wanted to touch on. And the second thing I wanted to touch on was this Plierre Poilievre hot topic, right? So in 2019, I started getting into politics heavily because I noticed that our country was being invaded by an ideology that was un-Canadian and how dangerous this is.
Mm-hmm.
So I've watched Plierre over a lot of years, and he's a very smart person. And I have laughed my ass off on how he just completely destroys the NDP and Liberals in the Parliament all the time. It's hilarious. But he's definitely positioned on things like Ukraine, which is problematic, right?
Yeah.
But my question is, who is really pulling the strings in the Conservative Party that's above the leadership role? Because I've heard stories. You look at what's going on with Joe Biden in the U.S., in the White House there, and how he's clearly they're like the president this and that, and like the president has a clue, somebody is orchestrating all of that. And I really have a huge feeling that there's a little more going on in the Conservative Party than what Canadians are aware of. And there's some claims that have been made. I don't want to get into them, but through leadership race, leadership elections in the Conservative Party,
right,
there's been reports of some questionable, voting integrity, right? So more than our general elections, I still kind of just question more the party itself and who's really at the head of it and dictating.
Yeah.
I just think there's more going on than what we see.
Well, we did see some strange activity when they had Joseph Bourgault and Grant Abraham, who ran for the leadership, and ultimately they weren't allowed to participate in the actual process, kind of disqualified on technicalities, right? And the same thing with Maxime Bernier.
And going back, right, going back to 2015, I've also found legacy media, mainstream media reports of Stephen Harper. So I'm pretty sure Stephen Harper signed Agenda 2030 in 2015. So if I'm wrong on that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Stephen Harper signed off on this Agenda 2030 just before Justin Trudeau came in.
What do you mean?
So if you look into that, you'll find reports on that.
What do you mean by
this initiative, this Agenda 2030? Right. I'm just using it as an expression. The Agenda 2030 initiative is what I'm talking about, right? So that's a Government of Canada initiative that is like however many United Nations member states have signed on to this. So contracted, convention, treaty, whatever you want to call it. I have, I could find it. I don't know. I got too much on my phone to go through at the moment, but look into that. Did Stephen Harper actually begin, instead of signing on, I'll say, did he begin the initiative, Agenda 2030? Because I've seen him in a video speaking about some semblance of a global government, right? So I have a video with him saying those words.
Okay. Well, we better move on, Jeremy, because I just got the call stacked up, and
I just wanted to really point that out to people, because you got to understand, like Leo is saying, right? So Stephen Harper may not be the knight in shining armor. People need to understand the Conservative Party might be compromised, and I just wanted to end this with saying, but you're still going to have to vote for him, because we got to get rid of these liberal supremacists. Because if the Conservatives get in, you'll have much more luck activating, lobbying conservative government than you will liberal government. So I'm just saying, it's still the best choice. I love Max Bernier, but he's obviously not going to win, right? So what do you do?
Don't know.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And here's Dave. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Rick.
How are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you, buddy?
I'm just fine, thanks. Go ahead.
I appreciate your last caller.
Mm-hmm.
I know where he's coming from. That's impressive. What he's talking about, it kind of touches on the truth as far as I'm concerned, and that doesn't mean much. It's just my opinion.
Yeah. But
the man was telling the truth as far as I can see. We're in deep shit right here. I want to know where you stand on all this.
On all what?
All this, what's going down?
We've talked about a lot of stuff.
I know.
Like all this. That's
Pardon?
not, I need that's a little broad. All this.
All this, what's going down. We had John on. I love John. I mean, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
But John's very broad, more broad than I am. And quite often you put John in this place and say, John, what proof do you have of this or that? And, but I'm asking, what's going on?
That's
I mean,
a pretty broad question too. What's going on?
Isn't it? Isn't it?
With regard to what?
We've got Justin Trudeau is he's burying our country. He's just destroying the country, and everybody's looking for answers. John believes everything he reads or hears on
no,
the internet.
That's not true. That's not
always
true because he watches this show and rarely believes what I say.
Oh, I know. Actually, he's one of the few people that stands up and says, Rick, I don't always believe everything you say. And I don't always believe everything you say either. But I follow you because I think you're searching for the truth.
Yeah.
And I really want us to reach a certain plateau where we have a view, a focus on an agenda, a plan. But I don't know what that plan is.
I hear you.
Just like you're always asking every time you go online and present your show, you're always asking, what's the resolution? How do we solve it? What's the answers?
Yeah, well, these are all broad.
I don't know,
Dave.
I don't know. I don't know that you know, but you're asking the right questions.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. I'm so confused. I appreciate Leo. I mean, he's a fighter. Leo would just as soon fuck them all up, and I'm okay with that. I don't like the fucking idiots either. But I know where you stand and where you... I mean, you're not... You want to resolve this with answers. But I don't see the answers. Where are the answers?
Well, I'm gonna move on because we're kind of going around in circles tonight, Dave. And I appreciate what you're saying.
No, it's okay. You can bluff me off. It's okay.
No, it's okay. No, it's just this conversation is just a little too broad tonight. And there are answers out there.
It's very broad. It's very broad. And you know what? I appreciate John. Yeah. You know, I hear John, and I mean, I can say, okay, John, I know where you're coming from and everything, but I don't always agree with everything John says. But you know what? John's trying to reach for the truth. That's why he tunes into your show.
Well, that's okay.
That's why I turn in there.
Yeah.
That's why I tune into your show as well.
You. Okay. Well, I do have to move on, Dave, because I've got them really stacked up tonight. And
that's okay. That's okay. And Leo's out there. I know he's listening.
Yeah.
We don't want little Leo to have to go to the Ukraine to try to solve all these problems. But anyway, that's fine. Move on then, Rick.
Thank
that's
you, Dave.
Good.
I appreciate you.
No problem.
You have a
Talk to
good
you
night.
later.
See you, my friend. Take care.
You too. Bye.
All right. I think this is Chris up next. Hello. How are you tonight?
Hi, this is Patricia. How are you doing
Patricia.
tonight?
Well, I'm okay. I'm okay.
I can't even believe I'm on the phone with the real Rick Walker.
Jeez. Oh.
Wild. This has made my night. Made my year.
How did this all start?
I do have a message.
It was with that caller the other night. It was kind of weird, eh? Who did that?
Yeah.
To me? Yeah.
Yeah, she was like, "Oh my God, I can't even believe it." Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah. Anyway.
I was talking about Justin Trudeau, so Justine. So, and so I was gonna just sing a little ditty.
Oh, okay.
Can I do that?
Yeah, entertain us.
Okay, here we go. Justine, 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 please take your socks and go. Justine, 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 Justine. And then I'll end it. Anyway, I just wanted to lighten up the show.
Hannah Montana couldn't have done any better.
Well, I won't quit my day job, I promise you that. Oh, I always wonder, they all get together in the House of Commons and even in the States, they all get together. It never seems like anybody really gets in trouble for the crap that they, create. So I always wonder, they get everybody going and, we're going to prosecute so-and-so and so-and-so. And it never happens. So like, what's your thought on that? I get myself going like, yes, they're going to prosecute so-and-so. And then nothing ever happens. I don't know.
Yeah, you're asking me for what, my opinion?
No, just your opinion on it. Why is there, they never really ever go to jail, Rick. They get fined like a pittance, maybe $1,000, right?
Usually there's almost no consequence. Well, you know what? Politicians do sometimes have to resign. But if you notice, it's always over some morality thing. It's like John Tory resigns because he had an affair with a woman who worked in his office, right?
Right. Yeah, they all do it. They just pinpointed him for some reason. I don't know why, but it's nothing new.
So there are things that they can resign over. Yeah, but somehow you're right. It's when it's something really serious, they seem to walk away with no consequence.
Yeah, kind of weird, eh? But I'm not going to stay on here. You got a lot of callers, and I just thought I'd give my 2 cents.
Well, I appreciate it very much.
Plus, I can't believe I'm on the phone with Rick Walker.
I can't believe I'm on the phone.
It's a miracle.
Patricia. Wow.
Oh my gosh, Rick, I'm so excited. I'm Twitter-pated right now.
Well, I'm glad you called in tonight. Thanks, Rick.
Have a great night.
I really appreciate the song. That was nice to be said.
Thank you, my love.
Thank you. You have a great night.
Of course, always. Bye for now.
See ya.
Bye.
Ciao. Okay, so let's see what we have going on here. What we are going to do is we are going to wrap it up for tonight. Because it's been a long haul today and been kind of a crazy long stretch of shows and other stuff. So it's coming up on 9 o'clock. We're not quite there, but yeah, we're gonna wrap it up just a little earlier tonight than we normally do. I really appreciate you guys spending the night here with me and each other. It's as always, a privilege to have you spending the time here, because I do know you could be any place else. But we've got a great community, and I think that's fantastic too. And thank you to the moderators. An extra special thank you to the moderators. A really tough job in there, especially over the last week or so, where they've been doing their very best to keep things civil and on track. I really, really, really have to take my hat off to those guys. They've been doing a great job in there. And yeah, please don't be too hard on them if they make a decision. Just direct your fury to me. I will take all the barbs, because ultimately it comes back to me anyway. And yeah, thank you, Anasty. Thank you, Gina, for everything you're doing in there. Thank you. We'll be back tomorrow night, folks. I'm going to take this down here. If you haven't liked, shared, subscribed, and done all that stuff, please, if you're new and you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing on the YouTube channel and over on Rumble as well. Yesterday, we had more views for the very first time ever, more views on Rumble than we did on the main YouTube channel. It was a very strange day. Something's going on. Something's changed in the algorithm. I've noticed that. So things have shifted toward Rumble. We're getting more traction over there. Not that the numbers were really down or anything on YouTube, but we got more on Rumble than we did on YouTube. So that was interesting. We'll see what happens there in the weeks ahead. So don't forget to subscribe there. And as I say, we'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same station, 6 p.m. Eastern. That's when we'll be back tomorrow. Catch you on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.